Welcome to Season 2 of the Sales Compensation Show, where we share the latest sales performance research, insights, and solutions through in-depth discussions with industry experts. Our goal for Season 2 is to enable our listeners to make smarter decisions based on real-world data and behavioral psychology. Join us for more holistic conversations and discussion about sales compensation and sales force effectiveness that will improve the lives and careers of both current and future sales comp leaders. I'm your host, Nabeil Alazzam. Today, it's our pleasure to introduce Pauline Xu, Sales Comp Leader at Unity Technology and former Director of Global Sales Compensation at Flexport, a pioneering figure driving strategic initiatives to optimize sales performance and foster organizational growth. With distinguished career spanning leadership roles at prominent companies such as Flexport, ServiceNow, and Adobe Markel, Pauline embodies a rare blend of expertise in sales compensation, financial planning, and operational excellence. Her proven track record of designing and implementing innovative incentive structures underscores her status as a thought leader and a change catalyst in the realm of sales compensation. And I could be more thrilled to engage in a dialogue with Pauline today to talk about the future of sales compensation. Welcome, Pauline. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Nabeil. Glad to be here.
I start the show off like this all the time because I feel like the world of sales comp is not something you wake up and aspire to be when you're young, because you may know very few people actually recognize that there is this world of sales compensation. Yet we all have ended up here and have prospered and worked very hard in this space. And so I'm curious to hear hear a bit more about your story, how you ended up in the world of sales comp.
Yeah, my sales leaders always tell me, Pauline, I don't know how you do it. I don't want your job. I'm like, thank you. That's a job security for me. Yeah, so I started as an FP&A, business unit controller, and my strengths was like financial modeling and P&L, bottom line, top line, those kind of things. And when I met one of the my previous managers, and he's like, he got a new job. He's like, Pauline, my boss just gave me a new job in managing commission and a sales comp, and I had no idea what it's about. Can you come to help me? I was like, I'm just like you. I had no idea what you're talking about at all. I'm not going to join you. And so he called me 3 times, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I got to learn new space. So I joined Intuitive Surgical, and I started my new career as a sales comp leader. I did commission, expense, like a forecast, those kind of things as a FP&A. But I had no idea like how commission plans work, or sales strategy, etc. But along the way, with the leaders' help, sales leader, finance leader, my boss, and I learned. I think I have to credit to one of my previous managers, Mark Miller at Markel, Adobe, and when he joined, I was also new. He's like, Pauline, your area is very important because you spend all my money. And but I have other things I need to do, big fish to fry, So you go manage the sales comp for me. If you make a mistake, I'm responsible. I'm like, Mark, what are you talking about? You're the CFO. I don't want to be, the person to make a big decision for you. He's like, I'm serious. I know you're good at what you do. Go do your work and make decisions. And if you're wrong, then I'll say I'm responsible. So I was like, okay. So I started at Markel with the experience from Intuitive Surgical, and kind of like really learned how to work with the leaders, how to design the plan and enable the plan and roll out the plan and make it work. So I have been enjoying this career ever since.
Yeah, it really is a very different role than is perceived from the outside, right? Because it's not just the financial element. There's the data piece, there's the sales process piece. Like, you kind of have to bridge all these things together to do it. I think, like, jumping into the role, what was the biggest surprise for you?
I think sometimes I get yelled at, and when I was an FP&A person, they always try to be nice to me, ask me to give them more budget, right? When it comes to sales incentive comp, it's like, why did you pay me $3 to the house? This is wrong. I mean, I just, partly, just I'm kidding a little bit. But yeah, so you get to deal with very talented salespeople and the sales leaders, but you also get to share with their frustration and their emotion. And I'm totally fine with that because if I were in that position, I'll be that way too, because it's a lot of money to be involved, right? We all need to pay our bills, and we need to get paid right. But just behind the scene, whether it's being paid right or wrong, or is it really right, or is it really wrong? There's a lot of way to look at it. So that will involve like best practice. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it really is a thankless job from that perspective, because at the end of the day, I always tell this to some of our employees that are that are new in our onboarding process. I say, when's the last time that you went and thanked your payroll administrator for your salary? You don't. You just expect it, and if you didn't get it, it would be a problem. And so, compensation just generally has a very no one wants to talk about comp. And it's something that you just expect, but it's like money, so it's put on the side, and it is, the frustration is kind of warranted. And so yeah, it's we do our best to make sure that it's flawless and it goes as smoothly as possible, so that you avoid those issues. But stepping back to kind of that shift that you made, the jump from finance into sales comp, I think that's always an interesting place of entry, and actually is a common one. We typically see it either from sales ops or finance, kind of the two most common ways to enter the sales comp space. I'm curious what that perspective of having sat in FP&A, managed the accruals of comp, etc., what benefits and how did that help you in that transition?
Yeah, I think a few things I realized. One is business sense, business acumen. I think you get trained a lot in FP&A space. And number sense, of course, FP&A is all about numbers. And then the last one is common sense. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter in which space, engineer or, manager or CFO or CTO, whatever, common sense is always the key to have in mind. So I think being worked as a P&A person, you definitely have a quick mind in terms of looking at the data, and then like, okay, what is the story behind the data? What does that tell you? Do you see the data is showing effectiveness of the plan? Do you see the data is telling you a different story you want to know? Do you see the data actually telling you this is something the opposite of the feedback you got? And can you spot a trend from the data? I think that those are all the very important elements, and in terms of sales analytics. But when you have financial modeling and a background and the skills, it does help you to use the data in the most effective way.
Yeah. I mean, it is a big number, right? As you mentioned earlier, I mean, you're paying. It's one of the largest cost centers in the organization. I think representing 9 to 10% on average of top line revenue. So I'm curious, when you think about financial modeling and you think about the tracking of sales comp, how do you approach it today?
Yeah, so I think leaders, the sales leaders, or whatever you work with, and the whole sales org team, they are all very reasonable, and they have their business acumen as well. So they have their thoughts, their feedback they want to share with you, but they also listen. They want to listen to your story, to listen to and understand like what the data is actually supporting us. I mean, if they are wrong, they will admit they have to rethink, right? So I think sometimes when I get feedback from the leaders, they say, hey, our guarantee period is too short, and we need to extend the guarantee period so to make sure we can attract the best talent, sales talent. And the recruiting team was say the same thing. Our acceptance rate is low, is not high enough because our guarantee period program is not like attracting the new hires. I'm like, okay, good feedback, let me take a look. So we look at the data, we look at new hires by different business segment, and we did a one-by-one analysis and by segment. The conclusion is the opposite of what the feedback we got, and the guarantee period actually can be shortened based on the new hires' performance. In the past couple of years, when you go back too far, not that relevant because the plans are totally different, right? So yeah, then we presented data to the leader, and then this is how it works, and by segment. And then, for SMB and mid-market, I think we can really shorten the guarantee period based on the new highest performance and the sales cycle. And we have large accounts, and those guarantee period maybe can be, later by a couple of months to make sure, accommodate the longer sales cycle. So leaders look at the data and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. And yeah, I think I agree with your assessment based on the data. So those are the things, area which help you to use data to exercise your negotiation skill, your influencing skill, but also at the same time, you really build a good partnership, build a trust, because it's not like, okay, you think it's too long, I think it's too short, vice versa, and it just get into heated conversation, right? Because it is a very sensitive subject. So yeah, and then the leader will say, how am I going to tell the recruiting team I'm working with? And they a part of the team members, giving us a feedback, they couldn't, get new hires. So my question is, do you want to really tell the new hires, hey, our company offers you the longest guarantee period, and come to work for us? I say, if I were the top sales talent, I would think, why are they sending them, their positioning, the plan, products this way? Something wrong with the company. I probably don't even want to join. Versus you say, we had the best product, best service, and other company offers a 6 months guarantee period. We only need to have 3, and our reps new hires still outperform. And that's, oh yeah, that gets me excited. I want to work for a company like that, right? Yeah,
Yep.
18 member, or selling the 18 group, products and the services.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. I think the data point itself of how quickly a rep can ramp up to full on-target earnings is a very valuable carrot to put in the recruiting process.
Yeah.
It's funny because in the moment you get these asks from sales leadership, the easy thing is actually just to go execute on it, right? But to push
Exactly.
yourself to step back and do the financial modeling and really stand up. I mean, I think this is kind of the approach that we should be taking in sales compensation, given to some extent we're kind of the financial ambassadors and investment analysts of this big investment pool of money and how we deploy the capital. So I think that was a great example in terms of what the obvious answer may not be right when you dive into the data. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you mentioned about accruals, and I did that to the experience as well. And when I joined Intuitive Surgical, and the first task was to reduce the variance, right? And that was a big number when we to try to narrow down. And I was totally new to the company, to the products, and I had no idea why we had a big variance. So, but I was telling my hiring manager, I was like, okay, we always do, top down, bottom up analysis where we do FP&A, forecast or whatever. Why don't we try the same way? So we built an Excel spreadsheet, and I use a high level, data. What's company's sales volume, a dollar or quantity, and then what's the previous payout? So we get a base commission rate, and then we can apply headcount, etc., and by segment. Then we do bottom up, like by the reps. What's the average performance, rating based on region or by products, by accessory, etc. And then we build that Excel spreadsheet, and then we do top down and bottom up, try to narrow down the gap. And then we started to book the accrual, and we reduced the variance by a large amount. I don't really want to, talk about those sensitive numbers, but that was a big change. And then after that, we rely on the Excel spreadsheet to help us to make a judgment call, but at the same time, we started to use exactly and to load the data which is not fully closed by the books, but close enough and to calculate the commission payout. So we have two data sets to compare. And then we make some judgment call. FP&A does that a lot, right? They call it a buffer, but we're not supposed to say that. But that's the way you usually go. Okay, yeah, this is what the Excel spreadsheet top down, bottom up number. This is exactly number because the numbers are not finalized, and this is the previous trend. Okay, this is the number we want to book. So we actually got into a very, very good spot, within 2 months, and ever since we never had a huge surprise.
Yeah. I mean, and the value of that is significant because it really, by being more accurate in your accruals and reducing the variance, you can start to you can reduce the buffer number the more accurate you are, and as a result, you unlock additional comp spend that you can deploy to short-term incentives and accelerators, et cetera. So I mean, we've seen tremendous upside when organizations kind of narrow down that plus or minus or the deviation on the variance on accruals. And you do have to think about it as kind of a forecasting problem. I mean, I think it's the more data that you bring in, the more accurate it's going to be. You top down, bottom up type of model. I mean, I think I'm curious from your perspective if you've ever used pipeline data, even pre-close to kind of drive it, because I think there's a ton of data on the sales process itself with actual prospects that is rarely fed into the FP&A side of the accrual process.
Yeah, so we do, and especially when we try to set quotas, and we want to see, what's the company's strategy, what's the area we want to drive the right behavior, and what's the past performance, and what's in the pipeline. How do we drive the new business? So what kind of plan we should design, what kind of strategy we should operate in. Yes, we do look at pipelines, especially when we set an annual target. And I mean, quarterly basis, we have this, forecast calls, right? It helps us to get an idea of what's the trend like, and is there anything we need to do? Do we really need a spiff, for example? Do we really need to have a special pilot program to to strengthen the particular area we would like to see better result, etc. So yes, we do use this kind of data.
Yeah. So I'm curious, talking about financial modeling for changes that come up or requests that come up, but shifting kind of to the mindset of thinking about overall plan design. I'm curious how you approach that also with the financial lens, but just broadly within sales comp, over the last few roles that you've had and the companies that you've worked with.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to plan design, a few things that comes to my mind. One is when you design the plan, you need to think, first of all, be very clear on the sales strategy. Really aligned with the company's vision and the company's goals, right? What do we want to accomplish for the new year? And there can be many. So is it more on the revenue side? Is it more on the profitability side? Is it the current plan really working, or is it just a tweak, or is it like a revamp? And what's the cost effectiveness? You don't want to hire a commission team cost $1 million to pay commissions, another few millions. And the simplicity, I think that is really the key. How do you design a plan that somebody who doesn't really know the sales comp actually can understand? If I tell my husband or my significant others, hey, this is the plan I designed. I want you to go to do X, Y, Z. If he or she or whatever is lost, then you have to think about it, right? And every minute when we pay the salespeople, the sales leader, should be utilized to bring more money for the company, for themselves, not spend their time on trying to understand, digest the plan. So that's another thing. I think it's a good strategy to think about. And also, global policy versus, local, growth phase. That's something else you have to think about. I mean, many times a different region say, hey, we're in a different growth period. US maybe in the hyper growth and all mature. We are like, one step behind you, and we want a different plan. And so you have to think like whether it's a good justification and how to make sure overall the plan structure strategy is the same, but allow local tweaks if it's deemed necessary. So basically quantity versus quality and simplicity, feasibility, and also scalability, right? A lot of companies are going through this growth phase and are continue to grow. And how do you make sure you start a plan, you think of scalability, how you can scale as a business scale. So these are the high level things we need to think about. So when you talk about strategy, it's just not like, okay, what's company sales strategy? Also plan design itself has all the strategy to implement to make sure, it can work.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting on the topic of simplicity. I think it is absolutely like, you're spot on in terms of where you want your reps to focus is not understanding the plan. You want them to be able to focus their time on executing. And I think one misnomer that I typically see is the simplicity is focused on the plan itself, and that's what sales leaders typically think. The sales organization thinks, okay, the plan is simple, as in this is the commission rate structure, or this is the pay curve. But I find a lot of the complexity ends up sitting upstream in the crediting logic of how a sale gets credited to any individual seller. And so I'm curious over, again, the different types of organizations that you've worked with, how you've seen that come to life in terms of simplifying that part, which is very complex.
Yeah, you hit right on the spot, and I can totally relate to that part. I think a lot of time when it comes to sales comp, we say there's a lot of gray areas. The gray areas are not from sales strategy, not from the high level plan design. It's all about how you actually implement it, right? So crediting rules is definitely one of the areas, creates a lot of gray areas. So the way I go about is when we design the plan, we start to document, to think, what if analysis, you're familiar. So finance people use that a lot, right? What if scenario analysis. So for the sales comp, same. So like, okay, we have this plan. Then let's think, what if a new hire comes in? How do you credit them? How do you pay them? What if an AE had a promotion? How do you credit? What a leader had a promotion or had a segment change? How do you credit the previous role and versus a new role, right? And so we started an FAQ doc. As we go along with the plan design, we start to be proactive to think about those questions already. I guess so. What if? And then we start to build an FAQ doc. When we try to collect the feedback from initial design, and then we will ask the leader, what kind of questions do you have? And oftentimes I will meet with leaders and some sales rep on one-on-one, and I will ask them the questions. Okay, this is the thinking process where the direction we're heading to. And if we do this, what do you think? And they're smarter than me a lot of time because they are in the space, selling every day, right? They will say, okay, so what if this happens? What do you do? Oh yeah, that's a good question. Let's discuss. Let's write it down, right? So we had this FAQ doc when we wrote out the plan. We already had those crediting rules established, and also, we will get new questions, new scenarios. Before COVID, when I'm in the kitchen and the sales rep will say, "Hey, Pauline, I'm working on a deal in US, right? Working a deal with Asia, and I think we will close the deals in 2 months. How are you going to pay me? How are you going to pay the Asia team?" That's a great question. We do have global account credit split policy. So as they bring you more new scenarios, then you start to think and what if, how to establish the crediting rules. And then also questions, problems surface, right? And this morning when I was dropping off my kids, and I just heard on the radio, it says like, it's only 11 a.m. I must be Eastern time. I'm already like making a lot of mistakes. I just realized that the lady was saying on the radio, it was like, yeah, we all make mistakes, right? So what do we do? Even though we establish the policy, we have the FAQ, and then what if it actually in reality doesn't work? Okay, let's update the policy. Let's make it work. So constantly, revisit, constantly, enrich the FAQ doc or make updates as necessary. So those are the things we do all the times. And being proactive, think ahead, and then think of those crediting rules before you actually roll out the plan. So when you roll the plan in front of your audience, when they ask a question, you already know the answers. That's what they are interested in most, right? How am I going to get credit for? How am I going to get paid? I mean, I don't need to listen to a lot of your comp plan strategy guidelines. I just want to come right to the point.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's. I know you and I've discussed this previously, and I think it's such a good tactic and a great documentation package to have when you think about the design of the plan. And something I'd recommend to everyone to do, because it forces you to do two things, right? I mean, I imagine in the design process, it forces you to have a very real conversation with the sales leaders on how they expect the plan to work as you're building out the crediting rules and FAQ associated with that. But it'll also probably highlight, I'm assuming this does this, it also forces you to work out the things that you want to focus on for enablement and for education during rollout, because it'll highlight the areas that are the most complex or the most misunderstood from the sales organization for you to focus on during that plan rollout period. So yeah, no, I think it's fantastic, because I rarely find that you can truly simplify the crediting rules. The crediting rules, the larger the organization, the more complex the sales process, the more SKUs, just naturally it becomes an exponentially harder and harder problem to narrow down. And so you're going to have this complexity in crediting logic, but it's how you go about enabling and simplifying through enablement. And this is a fantastic piece of advice. So no, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I'm curious. So when you roll this out, what else do you do in the rollout of the plan? So this is obviously one tactical element. I'm curious to hear how else you think about plan rollout.
Yeah. Different companies, use different, take different approach. And for me, I always believe the best person to roll the plan should be sales leaders and sales reps, because as I said, they know the business better than me. They are smarter than me. They can actually convince the audience better than me. So we will, usually partner with GMs and the leaders and sales managers and sales reps to roll out the plan. So when I was working at Markel, we had this AE, and he made like $1 million commissions in 1 year. And so, I mean, a lot of hard work. And, when he was on vacation, he will call me. He said, okay, Pauline, I need to, work with you, see how I should close the coming deals so I can make a better pay. I was like, enjoy your vacation. He said, I'm on the road. I was like, what? I don't want to, do those critical thinking with you when you're driving. He said, oh no, my son's driving. I can talk. So he opened his laptop. He used the, software, tried to figure out like how to get the most pay. So I was like, okay, yeah, for that potential customer, how about you bring some, deal size kicker? And for that deal, how about you think of multi-years, contract? And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, let me work on this and then that. And at the end of the year, he got a biggest check, and we put him on the stage and to ask him to share his experience. So next year when we roll the plan, we ask him to walk through the plan with the team, tell us like, how you will make the money out of the plan. So he was saying, this is how I would do it. This is how I would do it. So I thought that was very effective. So I applied that to other companies as well. And I think the feedback was very good. And even though sometimes, critical time, it's a little bit challenging, like a COVID time, right? For everyone, every business. So, but you have leaders on your side, you have reps on your side. They will help you to sell the plan, and usually it works very well. And once you roll out a plan, I think the best practice will always be available. Answer their questions. I will join sales staff meeting. I'll do one-on-one, or I'll meet with the managers and answer their questions and then listen to their feedback. We do that before we finalize the plan. We do that after we finalize the plan. And then we do that as we implement the plans throughout the year, see what needs to be improved, and then what's missing, what we didn't think of, what's the new business scenario we couldn't predict, and all those things.
Yeah. I think you need to keep that communication channel open. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Because I mean, the sales team is the customer of the sales comp function.
Exactly. The way to be successful in the area is really to build a strong partnership and to really establish trust. I mean, we all have best intention, right? So how we work together and then make sure we are on the same page. So I think you constantly provide transparency. You're constantly available to answer questions. Those are the areas where you should really do. It's like, okay, an escalation, let's resolve this. Oh, and an issue, let's solve the problem. Try to be proactive and try to be there, answer their questions, and then they will think through themselves as well. At one time, I went to a team staff meeting, and then the manager was like, Pauline, I know it's a difficult time, and we're trying to have a tight budget. We are not asking for more pay. I'm like, why? I'm not here to be a police to control your expense or to reduce your pay. I'm here to help you to get more pay because the better you get paid, that means the better higher revenue you bring in, and I will get better corporate bonus as well. So we're on the same boat. We are aligned. The way to do this is how to reduce the customer acquisition cost and bring the best for the company and yourself. So just make sure we are always aligned as a partners.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the best comp plan is the one, when gamed, produces the best results for the business. And I mean, at the end of the day, you want the reps to make that money and hit their targets. I'm curious, when you think about the ways that you stay involved, you mentioned a few, being a part of the sales team meetings, having that open one-on-one dialogue. Are there any other ways that you're collecting feedback from the selling organization?
So I think many ways. What I think most companies will do a formal way. That's like late second half of the year before they start to design a new plan. They will collect a feedback survey meeting to see what's working, what's not. I think that's great. But I also like to do on quarterly basis. Besides like daily slacks, right? And questions and all these things. And each quarter, as we make a payment, and we get like Jira tickets, right? It's like all those tickets piped in and flooded in. So I'm like, okay. Yeah, let's think of a process. Let's not like wait till the problem shows up and like when in the quarter end time, my team is so busy trying to calculate commission and then all those tickets we need to answer. So we do like besides what I mentioned, like a one-on-one and some staff sales staff team meeting, and then we also like talk to leader and I have a one-on-one with like GMs and with of course, let's not forget about CRO. I talk about GMs a lot and the sales VPs a lot, but CRO, of course, is the area we want to, collect thoughts and feedbacks as well. And the CFO, and the CPO, right? And the CLO, it's all, we are all working together regardless title. So I always, like after COVID, sometimes like now we go to office not every day. I like to meet with the salespeople and, when I joined like Flexport, the first couple of days after training, what I would do is I go meet with sales leaders and meet with the reps. And then, ask them questions. They will show me, okay, this is my plan. I have questions for you and stuff like that, right? So I'm like, okay, let's like have kind of like a cadence on quarterly basis. Let's review the plan. Let's review the payout. Let's see what kind of new issues, questions, and then we will write them down and as we go, right? For example, sometimes a leader will come to ask for quota relief. Okay, this is a scenario we want to have a quota relief. And this is another scenario we want to have quota relief. And then committee is like always busy with dealing with those cases, right? My suggestion would be, and why don't we start another doc? That's my favorite, right? So quota relief, what are the cases we have collected, the issues we have discussed? Let's look at them and then let's write down by category. And then, okay, for this category, we will agree to the relief. For that category, we will say no. Until next time when they ask for quota relief, and then you fit your book, right? Okay, it fits. Pick no, yes, yes, no. If it's a new scenario, then let's discuss and then let's document it. So next time you have another scenario, so the list gets a little bit longer, but also makes it very clear. So it really help you to practice what we call the consistency, fairness, right? After a while, you kind of, how do we pay this person last time? Some kind of questions, issues similar, but we don't remember when. How can we remember everything, right? So when you have this doc, you can, practice and consistency, fairness very well, and then you build a trust as well at the same time. So constantly, feedback loop. It doesn't have to be at the second half of the year, building a new plan. I know on quarterly basis, you can even do on monthly basis, but I always like try to have one-on-one meeting to listen, to hear, and then to take my notes and then think through. And I like to work with my team as well. I would say, okay, we have team meeting. This is the feedback we got. This is the question I got. What do you guys think? And then my team member was go through one by one round table. Say, okay, I think we should do this. And I think we should do that. And I agree with A, I disagree with B, and then we discuss why. And then we have a plan that we work with the leader and see what leaders thinks. So you get everybody engaged, right? Your team member, they are not just here paying commission. They want to participate. They want to have a brainstorm session. They want to contribute as well, right? So you engage all the parties together, and it's very dynamic and very exciting, challenging, but also rewarding.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think it's not only equitable and fair, it's, the premise of not doing disposable work, right? Every time you get that request, every time you get that question, you're doing it from scratch, you ship it out, and then it gets forgotten. And
exactly.
That is, it's wasteful, it's inefficient. So I think
exactly, yeah. So you avoid the repetitiveness and then you gain the efficiency, right? Why nobody wants to work like 10 hours a day if we don't have to, right? So if those things, you cut off the time and then you have a book to go by, and everybody is like happy in a sense, at least they understand. And then your team doesn't have to do like overtime work to solve another problem, which is similar. You already know how to process.
Yeah, 100%. And the nice thing about that is you can then take the exceptions and escalate them to senior leadership where they come up. If we've already aligned on a quota, adjustment process for this type of scenario, and now we have an exception that makes sense. Now there's a very structured way of approaching. We've done this X number of times this way. Why are we now deviating from this request? And I think it just kind of makes the conversation much more data-driven, back to your original point. and you can start to financially model. I mean, I can imagine, especially if you keep track of like how many cases are done a certain way, because then you can now go back and say, had we changed the logic to what you want to do now, we would have spent $1 million over the last 2 years on these types of exceptions.
Exactly.
So it kind of just brings the financial modeling aspect to life as well. I mean, yeah, no, I think the if there's one thing to take away for sure, it's it's kind of an input for the audience that's listening. I think the element of documentation and kind of building up these SOP handbooks on how you should operate is really, I think, can be tremendously impactful. And before we shift off, any other best practices that you want to share with the audience?
Let's see. We talked about consistency, fairness, transparency, partnership. I think one more thing to add is always remember, even though sales compensation is a sensitive subject, emotional, as I started with that, always remember assume everybody has the best intent. So the best practice is to trust leaders, trust the reps, and don't just assume, oh, they just want to get more pay. And then let's not talk to them about this. And then let's close the door. I don't think that's a good practice. And at the end of the day, we all share the same interest. We want the company, sells the most. We want the reps sells the most, and then it's a happy family. So the best practice is assume the best intent from everyone, every organization. I think that's important. Creates a healthy working environment, and so can be collaborative and work together better and more efficient as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's it's a great takeaway comment, because I think sales compensation is about bringing a bunch of stakeholders across the organization together to create that true alignment, and you need to make sure you foster an atmosphere where people can work together towards that outcome.
Yes.
I'm curious, before we wrap up the show, any resources or books that things that you recommend that have helped you scale in your career as a sales comp professional?
Yeah, great question. Now these days with the internet, you read less books and more like all the social media, so everything online, right? I do remember one book I read a couple, I think 3 years ago, and Flexport CEO Ryan Peterson, he mailed us a book called The Goal. And if I can pronounce the author's name correctly, I think his name is Eli Yahoo Goldratt. I hope I pronounced his name right. So he introduced, I think it must be COVID time. There was no Christmas party, no nothing. And Ryan kindly sent us a book probably as a Christmas gift, a holiday greetings, I should say. So Eli Yahoo and introduced a concept which is called TOC, a theory of constraints. So, Flexport is in tech and logistic business, and not a manufacturing company, but similar in that sense. So the series starts from a manufacturing company. It's like a fictional book, but it has a lot of business, acumen behind this. So basically, I think the book is talking about the internal constraints, internal bottleneck, and how you want to improve the productivity. How do you use this apply constraint-based thinking process? How to help you to really remove the internal bottleneck and to gain the best efficiency. So I think the book was very well received, and the practice has been used project management and in other spaces as well. It's worth reading. So for me, 2 takeaways. One is, yes, it is a hard, not easy job on even daily basis. But at the same time, we all want to make sure we don't become the bottleneck or constraint to another business group, right? we work together. Hey, Workday team, I need your help to do this. Hey, legal, I need to review this. And the same thing, like recruiting say, hey, sales comp team, I need to pay this, and I need to give us a new hire more guarantee, right? So how we work together, remove the internal bottleneck, and be collaborative and gain efficiency. That's really something I think really come in my mind. Like, okay, when I work with the team, how do I make other people's life easy or easier or less difficult, probably more realistic, right? So that's something I always have in my mind, and it's something I always tell other people. Sorry, I know I think this needs to be done, and I know you have tons of things on your plate, but at the end of the day, this makes your life easy, make us like our life easy, make the salespeople's life easy. And also, when you design the plan, you can also think of that, right? Use the constraint-based thinking. What limits salespeople's performance potential? Okay, could be the plan design itself, could be the crediting rules, or could be the implementation, right? So a lot of things to think about. Like, for example, COVID time, some company grow really fast, some company goes the opposite, right? So what is the constraint? Is it just because we cannot go to office work? Or is it because people's mindset shifted, or just because something else? So like for me, I think some I don't want to say a lot about the company details, but COVID can promote a lot of sales, but at the same time, people maybe forget about anything else, just like sell. But how about the profitability, right? So when you design the plan, you need to think: is this the right behavior we want to encourage? Is it just the sales volume? If not, what would that be? If it's the profitability, how do we incorporate that element into the plan? So salespeople, their thinking is not being constrained, limited by just the sales volume, and also think about the profitability of the company. So that is the book, I think, kind of enlightened me a lot. How do you think, from strategy, from plan design, and the implementation as well, right? What's the issue cause the implementation not that successful or less productive, and it causes more manual work, other things, think through that angle, and how to make everyone's life easier, and increase the productivity as well as profitability.
Yeah, I love that. I think you always get a different perspective reading sometimes books that are totally unrelated to sales comp, but bring those practices back into the world of how we operate. So I really appreciate the recommendation. No, Pauline, this has been fantastic. I think we covered a lot of great topics and definitely some great takeaways for the audience that's listening. Just want to thank you again for being on the show and giving back to the community in the sales comp world.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
The Sales Compensation Show is brought to you by Forma AI, the first sales compensation platform designed around the agile methodology of comp ops. To learn more about how Forma AI can help design, execute, and optimize your sales comp strategy, visit forma.ai. Find us by searching for Sales Compensation on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. On behalf of the team here at Forma AI, thanks for listening.